I am so excited to share with you a special episode of the podcast today where the tables are turned. I recently sat down with Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, where she interviewed me on her podcast on the ups and downs of starting IT Cosmetics and the journey of being a female founder. In today's episode of the Jamie Kern Lima Show podcast, we're sharing that interview with you. If you've ever launched your own business or idea or art into the world, you'll likely have so many experiences that I have, and I can't wait to share them with you. See, so many people see the success of IT Cosmetics and think perhaps it was easy, or I just got lucky, or maybe everyone just believed in me and the idea from the beginning. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And today, I hope this episode inspires you to never let anyone else's doubt about you or your idea turn into doubt in your own head. I hope you let it take root that rejection or setbacks or lack of traction are no indication that your dream or business or idea aren't going to succeed. I hope you enjoy this conversation and feel like it's exactly for you today. Welcome to this special edition of the Jamie Kern Lima Show podcast.
Welcome to the Jamie Kern Lima Show.
Oprah, how have you defied the odds?
Her show is unlike any I've ever done.
A revelation. When you listen, it feels like a hug, but your brain and your spirit and your heart is like, wow.
Melinda French Gates.
When I look into Jamie's eyes, I feel like I am on some other cosmic level with her.
I could see the light around her. She's infused with light.
Imagine overcoming self-doubt, learning to believe in yourself and trust yourself and know you are enough. Welcome to the Jamie Kern Lima Show.
Jamie Kern Lima is her name.
Everybody needs Jamie Kern Lima in their life.
Jamie Kern Lima. Jamie, you're so inspiring.
Jamie Kern Lima.
A week before my one big shot on QVC, we fly to Pennsylvania. I go and I sit in this rental car all alone in the QVC parking lot, like watching the front doors of the building, going, the next time I go in that building, I'm going to go on air. I'm either going to leave bankrupt or I'm going to leave with my entire life changed.
I'm Meghan, and this is Confessions of a Female Founder, a show where I chat with female entrepreneurs and friends about the sleepless nights, the lessons learned, and the laser focus that got them to where they are today.
No time to get down, 'cause I'm moving up. No time to get down, 'cause I'm moving up. No time to get down, 'cause I'm moving up.
Any female founder, or founder at all, will tell you these moments happen where it feels like absolutely everything is on the line. You feel as though whatever you and your team have been working towards, somehow it's all led you to this one point in time, whether it's a big interview or a high-pressure investor meeting. And I will tell you firsthand, the stress, it's palpable. But what do you do when, despite giving it your all, it still doesn't work out? When you still get a no, a crushing no. It's a lot to process. It makes you question whether chasing your dream is even what you're meant to do. But here's the thing. This is precisely the moment that you have to dig deep. You have to use every tool you've got and get right back up. My guest today has faced her fair share of those moments. And oh my goodness, has she come out even stronger every single time.
After every rejection, even the most painful ones, even the guy that said, like, no one's going to buy makeup for someone who looks like you with your body and your weight, I would write them a letter, a thank you note, as if I'm 100% certain we're going to be in their stores and it will be a yes.
And eventually, she did get that yes. Jamie Kern Lima went from being a waitress at Denny's to the founder of the billion-dollar makeup line, IT Cosmetics. Her ability to believe in herself despite rejection, it's her superpower. Since selling It Cosmetics, Jamie has become a best-selling author, invested in over a dozen businesses, and has appeared as a guest shark on Shark Tank. But when I met her, I didn't know any of that. I knew none of that. I just knew her as Jamie, my new neighbor. And she soon became my rocking chair friend. You know, the kind of person where you can just go and sit in your sweats and cozies, no makeup on, and just chat for hours. Her passion is absolutely contagious and uplifting, and I have no doubt that you're going to walk away from this conversation feeling energized and inspired. Let's go.
Hi.
Hi. Oh my gosh.
We're actually double recording for you, and we started 5 minutes out.
Oh, Jamie. I mean, I feel like we haven't talked about our blood type, but yours is probably an A positive like mine, because I was like, even my blood is overachieving.
It is.
It is?
It is. And I just learned that this year, actually.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's my running joke. I was like, even my blood type has to be like A positive, A plus, A plus.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you for doing this. It's been a full week, but here we are. You good?
Yes. Are you okay?
Yeah. Well, you saw my
Okay.
text yesterday. So
Yes.
there's a lot
Yes.
going on, but that's for our rocking
Yes.
chairs. This is our
Yes.
pseudo rocking chairs.
Okay.
And same vibe. So let's start with that moment of how it all began.
Well, and you being my friend, you know a whole lot more than everyone else. And I actually feel most people don't know the story. I think they just see like what the press says, which is Denny's Waitress builds billion-dollar company.
Oh my gosh, but it's all the beats in between that are the story.
Yes, yes. And how this all started was not only me identifying a problem I couldn't really solve with anything out there, but then realizing there was a whole bunch of other women that, like me at the time, felt unseen by the beauty industry. And sticking to the authenticity of the mission of that is how we entered an industry and literally became the largest luxury makeup company in the country.
Mm-hmm.
But growing up, I always thought, oh, I'm going to host a talk show one day. I would sit in my living room and watch Oprah every single day. And I just felt that, like, I'm going to do that one day. So I did all the jobs to get to that point. And I was anchoring the news and I was moving up in markets. And I thought this was my dream job. I thought this is what I'm going to do forever. And I have hereditary rosacea, which there's no cure for it. I had gone to every dermatologist at the time. And I was in Portland, Oregon, and I was live on the air.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear in my earpiece from the producer, there's something on your face. There's something on your face. You need to wipe it off. You need to wipe. And I'm live. And, you know, he was just trying to help me. And I remember kind of knowing what it was, but just figuring I'll fix it during the break. So during the commercial break, I looked down in my compact and I tried to cover it up. It was my rosacea.
Was coming through.
Yeah. And it gets really red and bumpy. And just for everyone listening, like imagining like the way desert clay looks, it cracks. So that hot HD lights it was breaking up my makeup and the red was coming through like cracks all over. So I went to cover it up. And for the first time ever, it wouldn't cover.
Well, and also just in that, as you talk about feeling seen,
Yeah.
I often think about with any of those moments, those human moments, those moments where you're so very seen. Maybe you're not seen as like who you are deep on the inside in that moment. It's a producer trying to have your back. But how did you feel?
Initially, I felt scared and worried.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it wouldn't cover for the first time, I actually entered what I would describe as a big season of self-doubt because I started spending my paycheck on, you know, all the products out there and I couldn't find anything that worked. And so I would be anchoring the news live on the air and you're talking to millions of people. And then I'd hear in my earpiece, it seems to be back again. It's still there. Oh, no, it's still there. We could still see. And so I would be talking, but I would be thinking thoughts like, am I going to get fired? Like, am I costing the station rating? Like, are people changing the channel right now? And here's what I want to say to anyone who's gone through struggles. A lot of the greatest businesses are launched out of those problems. And, you know, faith is a big deal for me in my life, but I do think this is a universal principle, whether someone believes in God or the universe, or whatever they might believe. I believe so often in our life, like our greatest setbacks can actually be God's setups for what we're actually supposed to do next.
Faith comes up a lot in every single one of these conversations with any female founder I've spoken to. Every woman talks about faith, whether in herself, in God, in something higher, in a calling, in a purpose. It is so profound to me that is the commonality in any of these sectors and any of these journeys, and anyone, whether they've IPO'd or they're on their rise, everyone has this deep, deep faith. And I think there's something about that that's been revelatory for me to be reminded of, because even as you're telling the story about sitting there on the news desk and you have someone in your ear saying this thing to you, but you still have to focus on the thing in front of you, right? You can apply that to so many different things in the world. For me, I think, oh, wow, they're there in your ear, but it's still just noise. You have to stay focused. You have to stay focused on what's ahead, and also say in that, what could feel like a breakdown could instead be a breakthrough. And for you, it was your breakthrough.
You know, I've never said this before. I've never shared this before, but I believe that gut feeling, and when I get those gut feelings, I believe it's how God talks to me. And I wait until I feel that gut feeling. And I remember having this moment where I'm like, what if I could figure out how to launch a product that, like, if it works for me, like, it's probably going to help a whole bunch of other people. Maybe there's all these other people that can't find makeup that will cover. And then I had this like aha moment, as Oprah would call it, aha moment, where I was like, wait a minute. I've never seen a woman with bright red, bumpy skin all over her face selling a product saying, this is amazing. And I love the beauty commercials. I love them, and the ads in magazines. And I always aspired to look like that. But deep down inside, they always made me feel like I wasn't enough. And it was this why that hit me. I was like, wait a minute. What if I could launch a business where I put real people as models, like every age and shape and size and skin tone and skin challenge?
And that was such new thinking then.
Yes.
When you were bringing that to market, that was so, now it might seem more normalized and people might be listening going, well, yeah, of course. It was not an of course. It was a revolutionary way to think about makeup and beauty at the time. I mean, that would have been when I was an auditioning actor, auditioning for commercials. And I remember my commercial agent could not submit me for beauty or skincare ads because I had freckles. They're like, no. It's just never going to work because freckles aren't a sign of beauty. It was, you couldn't see yourself reflected there. So back to your point of being seen.
Yes.
You said, I want women to feel seen and to not feel as though I'm here to fix what you may have always seen as a flaw. No, I'm here to enhance what I see in you, which is your beauty.
Yes. I'm going to jump out of my chair talking about this or cry, one or the other, because I'm so passionate about this. And it was like this why that was bigger than me. It's like, wait a minute. If I can put real people as models, call them beautiful and mean it. Like, what if in some small way I could shift the definition of beauty in the whole beauty industry for every little kid out there who's about to start doubting themselves. And my honeymoon flight to South Africa, I wrote the business plan, came back, quit my job. My husband quit his job. We just went all in, right? I leaned on that knowing and that why. I'm like, I've got to go for this. We went all in. We poured every penny of savings we have into the business.
I mean, that, Jamie, but that is so hard for people to imagine.
Yeah.
That is such a tremendous leap of faith. And that's why we're talking about faith. But that is, can you imagine saying, no, we're all in?
All in.
Not just that, and that's listening to that whisper, that gut, that knowing that says, we have reason to believe, without anything around us that should tell us that should be the case, that we can do this.
Yeah.
We believe it so deeply.
Yes. After we poured all our savings in, after we figured out a product that like actually worked for me, we did hundreds of iterations of a formula. Here's what I didn't know. I thought, oh my gosh, if the product's great and our mission is so great, it's just going to work. It's just going to sell. It's just going to be huge. Oh my gosh. Every one of those department stores, those big beauty retailers, this is what they would say over and over to me. First of all, they said no for 3 years straight. And I sent samples everywhere. And none of them believed at the time that this idea of a product that works for people with skin issues, and we show it on all ages and real people and sizes and skin tones. And they would always say this to me, These words exactly. Women will only buy makeup from images of unattainable aspiration. It was always those two words, unattainable, which means you can't even look like that because it's not real. And I think one of the most important things that I wish I knew with more certainty sooner is that you can never let anyone else's doubt about you turn into doubt in your own head. And it is so important to what we were talking about for whatever that looks like for you to get still, to pray, to meditate, to learn how to hear your knowing. Because I think your knowing is that is what you listen to, not any of the no's happening around you, right?
Yeah. Not the no's, the knowing.
Exactly.
You know, like for me, starting a company, it's newer, surrounded by very, very savvy businesswomen friends. And even when you and I had just become friends and I was talking to you about business, I remember you said to me, okay, so what's the timeline? I said, oh, yeah, like a couple months from now. You're like, that's too soon. And I didn't want to hear that. But you were right. You planted a seed that became a knowing for me. And it gave me the grace to have the space to take my time until it was right. To really like not be concerned about someone else's urgency or the media's urgency or speculation's urgency somehow becoming my urgency. To wait until you're ready, even if I didn't want to hear it. It was the thing that I needed to hear.
I want to call out one thing you just said about planting the seeds, because it's so easy if all of a sudden our timeline's being pushed out or something, we think we did something wrong. We think, oh, everyone else sure looks like they have it together on social media or whatever. It must just be me. Because a lot of times when you look at companies or you look at businesses or anything online, you know, you see the outcome or the external.
Yes. They create the illusion of here's the finished product and look at how great it is.
Yeah.
And it's just tied up with the bow and the bow is perfect as opposed to the process is not perfect.
Yes, it is
The process can be painful.
Yeah.
And it can be riddled with things that don't just make you question your business, they make you question yourself.
Yes.
And I think most of us are risk averse to the idea of looking as though we failed at something.
Yes. And I'm thinking about a famous quote that says, I think it's Brennan Burchard, that says, like, you're not scared to start. You're scared to have other people see you starting small.
At least for me, I can only speak for myself. At the beginning, I just liked making jam. All I liked to do was just make jam and preserves. And it went from, okay, well, I'm going to share this jam with lots of friends and family, to people really like it. And it brings me joy. So maybe I can share it more broadly. But even then, I was in so much fear of failure or opinion that I wasn't thinking big enough at first. At the onset, I thought, okay, well, I know what I can do. Like, I'm going to go online and I can get what's called a cottage license, which you can get in the state of California, which means if you cook something in your home, you can sell it up to a certain amount at a farmer's market or somewhere small. And I thought, okay, well, that's great. I'll get my cottage license. And I applied for one and thought I'll just do small batch jam from home. And I had to step back and look at what I was doing and saying, am I playing small because I want to play small? Or am I setting in motion playing small because I'm scared? And you know, Oprah, who I know is a mentor and friend to you, same for me. She was the one that said, there are tons of things you could put your name on. But for you and how you like to show up for people, once you figure out how to encapsulate your essence, then you'll know. And it was so clear, even as I'm listening to your story, the essence of who you are was about feeling seen, knowing that you're enough, knowing that you're beautiful, despite what anybody would say, and putting that essence in a product that could be shared with millions of people.
Yes. We need to pause for a super brief break. And while we do, take a moment to share this episode with every single person that you know who this could inspire, because this conversation can truly be the words and inspiration they need to hear today to keep going. to remember that they matter, and to feel less alone and more enough, more connected, and more worthy. Who you spend time around is so important, as energy is contagious, and so is self-belief. And I'd love to hang out with you even more, especially if you could use an extra dose of inspiration, which is exactly why I've created my free weekly newsletter that's also a love letter to you, delivered straight to your inbox each and every Tuesday morning from me. If you haven't signed up to make sure that you get it each week, just go to jamiekernlima.com to make sure you're on the list, and you'll get your One-on-One with Jamie weekly newsletter and get ready to believe in you. If you're tired of hearing the bad news every single day and need some inspiration, some tips, tools, joy, and love hitting your inbox, I'm your girl. Subscribe at jamiekernlima.com or in the link in the show notes. In life, you don't soar to the level of your hopes and dreams. You stay stuck at the level of your self-worth. When you build your self-worth, you change your entire life. And that's exactly why I wrote my new book, Worthy: How to Believe You Are Enough and Transform Your Life for You. If you have some self-doubt to destroy and a destiny to fulfill, Worthy is for you. In Worthy, you'll learn proven tools and simple steps that bring life-changing results, like how to get unstuck from the things holding you back, build unshakable self-love, unlearn the lies that lead to self-doubt, and embrace the truths that wake up worthiness, overcome limiting beliefs and imposter syndrome, achieve your hopes and dreams by believing you are worthy of them, and so much more. Are you ready to unleash your greatness and step into the person you were born to be? Imagine a life with zero self-doubt and unshakable self-worth. Get your copy of Worthy, plus some amazing thank you bonus gifts for you at worthybook.com or the link in the show notes below. Imagine what you'd do if you fully believed in you. It's time to find out with Worthy. And now, more of this incredible conversation together.
Okay, so you've created this product, this magical concealer, and you're ready to share it with the world, but no one is paying attention. That is so hard.
I had no idea how many no's I would get. No's from amazing experts in the beauty industry, no's from some of my favorite stores I would shop in. I mean, I would send our samples to everyone. And finally, Meghan, all of the really high profile buyers and this and that, they were all saying no. So I was like, okay, I've just got to get our product so good. This is and I felt in my gut it was gonna work, but nothing around me said that my gut was right. So I started stalking LinkedIn going, let me just find everyone who works at Sephora, no matter their position, and Ulta Beauty and all the department stores and QVC. Let me just send them all samples. And I mean, it was just over and over and over.
Not love bombing, product bombing. You're like,
product
I'm just going to send it.
I was just over and over.
But also, you don't have the funds to just be sending out endless product.
Yeah.
That could possibly just end up in someone's, they're going to give it to a friend or they're not going to even open it. That is, again, such a leap of faith and an investment because you don't know the ROI at that point.
Yes. And I remember we were so close to bankruptcy, and I remember I'd finally got a meeting with Sephora. I was like, oh my gosh, I could barely afford the plane ticket to get there. Mm-hmm. So it's this tall building in Market Street in downtown San Francisco. And I flew there. I remember going up the whole building. I remember the elevator doors opening, and I felt like Anne Hathaway in Devil Wears Prada, where I was like, whoa. I remember looking all around, and I had this moment where I looked down at what I was wearing, and I was like, oh.
Oh no, what were you wearing?
I couldn't afford, it was an old, a very old kind of dress thing, but I could not afford a new outfit. And when I walked in the boardroom, I was pouring my heart out, and there was one decision maker, and she was actually the head buyer at the time. And I'll never forget, she stopped me mid-pitch, and she said, if people were talking about this product, I'd be hearing about it, and I'm not. Yeah. And it was a no. And I remember just walking out to the elevator, and it was a packed elevator, and I was trying not to cry. I remember tears like at the edge of my lashes, and I was trying not to cry my lashes off. And I said, I was like, I can't cry. I'm a CEO. These are all Sephora people. I'm like, they can't see me cry. And I was like trying to hold it all together. And we got to the bottom lobby, and I walked straight out and right around the corner on Market Street and up against this brick wall. And I just like started sobbing because I was like, how am I going to call Paulo, my husband, and tell him it's a no? And I don't know how we're going to make it. And there were so many of those.
Oh, Jamie. As you're talking about all these no's, for me, is what was I doing before? I was acting. Oh my gosh. Oh, please. I heard no all the time, especially because I wasn't cookie cutter for a specific type. And at the start of my auditioning career, you were either the Black girl or the white girl or the Latina girl, or like everything was typecast. So being mixed, I could get into a lot of rooms. That meant as a numbers game, I heard no even more.
Yeah. I remember a no from QVC where I'd sent them so many samples for years. I finally got the head guy, a guy named Alan Burke. And
I love this story.
Oh my gosh. So he's responsible for building the multi-billion-dollar, beauty business at QVC. And imagine sending hundreds of samples for years and either getting no's or never hearing. I finally got word he wanted to have a call. I was like, oh my gosh, if Alan Burke wants to get, like, this is huge. If he's going to give me finally. And, and I was like pacing around my office, which was our living room. And I was like getting ready for the call. I was like power posing because Harvard had done the research that if you pose like Superwoman, you're more confident. I was like power posing. I was like pumping myself up. And I was like telling myself, like, they'll be lucky to have us and all these things. Anyways, that phone call, he was very kind, but he basically said in these exact words, we've received your samples, all of them. And I wanted to call you directly and let you know myself that I've met with our entire buying team, and it's unanimous that you are not the right fit for QVC or our customers.
It's horrible. I love that he did it personally. It's not like breaking up in a Post-it note.
Right.
But oh man, after 3 years.
My worst rejections were to come, but that was a pretty bad one.
Especially after that grind. And also at this point, how much money do you have in the bank account?
Close to zero. Yeah, we were basically getting 1 to 2 orders a day on our website and barely keeping the lights on. And we couldn't afford marketing or advertising, so it was just word of mouth that people were even hearing about it. Everything was about how do we stay alive. And I remember at the time, we got an inbound from a potential investor. And I was like, oh my gosh. I started doing all my homework. I'm like, they've invested in all these companies that like used to be very tiny. Now they're big names in grocery stores and big box retailers. I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, I was freaking out. I told Paulo, my husband, I'm like, look at this email, look at this email. And it was a big potential investor, so a big private equity company, very well known. And they got a hold of our product and they wanted to have a meeting.
Oh my gosh.
And so the thought of like, oh my gosh, this investor is going to be my saving grace because if he invests, then A, we're not going to go bankrupt. B, like maybe he can use all his connections to get us in these stores. And we took our first meeting and it was amazing. We did meeting after meeting after meeting, and we flew up for the final meeting where I presented like the whole future product pipeline. And I thought this was going to be my saving grace. And I was so excited. And I'll never forget, Paulo, my husband, was standing next to me about 3 feet from me. And the head of the private equity firm was there. He was lovely. And his whole team, who was great, they were all there. At the very end of the meeting, he says to me, congratulations. You should be so proud. Like, this is a really, really great product. But it's a no. We're going to pass on investing in IT Cosmetics. And I was like, I was so used to hearing no, but it felt like, like a punch in the gut because I was like, I don't know how we're going to make it. And so I said, can you tell me why?
What did he say?
Well, feedback can be a gift.
Oh.
So I said, can you tell me why? And he got really quiet. And I'm standing here in person, right? I'm like 2 or 3 feet from him. And he got really, really, really quiet. And he says to me, do you want me to be really honest with you? And I was like, yes, please. And he just paused. And I remember feeling like my heartbeat in my ears for some reason. I was like, what could this be? And I remember his mouth started moving. And I remember looking at his mouth and his teeth for some reason. And he says to me, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. And when he said those, first of all, I never even got angry or felt anger toward him. But when he said those words to me, it felt almost like a lifetime of body doubt and self-doubt like flooded my body all at once. So I almost felt like I was staring my own fear straight in the eye. But here's why I want to share this. When he said those words to me, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. I got this feeling, and it was so strong. Meghan, I can feel it right now. Like literally, it was so strong in my gut.
Visceral.
Yeah, visceral. This feeling that said, he's wrong. Like, he's wrong.
Oh, that's huge. And I think that's also a good reminder of in those moments where the environment, the pitch, the opportunity feels so much bigger than we are. The building itself, the enormous elevator doors. Don't try to book the part, just try to book the room. Meaning, there's always going to be a room full of people, and especially in business as you're pitching, some of those people from Sephora will probably end up at Ulta, and some of the Ulta people end up at a hedge fund, and some of those private equity people end up at that VC company. And you might not be right in that exact moment for that part, for that pitch, if we're making the analogy. But one of those people in the room will likely remember you. And when your journey takes you somewhere else and your paths cross, you may have not booked that part. You may have not gotten that exact pitch, but you've booked something in that room so that they've remembered you, your essence, your product, what you can bring to the table, and to try to see those opportunities even when there's a no.
Yeah.
The no is a no for right now.
Yeah.
Or it's a not yet.
Yes.
But it could still be with one of those people who's present to him saying that to you.
Okay, I have goosebumps right now. Because this is, okay, after every rejection, even the most painful ones, even the guy that said like, no one's going to buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. Even Alan Burke, the head of QVC, who said you're not the right fit for us or our customers. Even the woman at Sephora, right, who said no one's talking about your product. After every single one, Meghan, I would write them a letter, a thank you note, as if I'm 100% certain we're going to be in their stores and it will be a yes every time.
Wow.
And then over and over, let's say 6 months later, we get an article written about our product somewhere. I would then go email every single one of those people who said no and be like, great news. This product just got featured here and and when we get in your stores one day, I can't wait for this because this is going to change all your customers' lives. I'm so excited to partner, as if for sure it's going to happen. And I kept doing that over and over for years. They might have thought, who knows what they thought about me, but guess what?
Oh my gosh.
Every no turned into a yes. Every single no turned into a yes.
This is, some people will be super intentional about creating their vision board. Yeah. Great. That is you putting your vision board in action.
Yes.
Every single time that you made a choice to send an email, to follow up, to continue believing and putting those beliefs not just on a board, not just in your head, to putting them in words, in action, putting pen to paper as though it is true.
Yes.
I think that's really powerful for people to see that it's not something that you just look at. It is putting the do's behind the says. You're saying it, but you're doing something actively to signal to the universe or whatever it is that you believe in. This is in motion. Maybe not as fast as I'd like it to be, but this is coming. This is coming, and I'm so excited. And then, perfect timing to fast forward to how you ended up on QVC.
Oh my goodness.
Just paint the picture for us of this epic QVC moment in 2010.
This is the wildest story, and honestly, the biggest business lessons and life lessons I've ever learned. Because here's the deal. We're over 3 years in, okay? And imagine everyone, if you've gone through this before, or maybe you're just going through it with me right now, but we're 3 years into like building this dream and on the verge of bankruptcy, everyone is saying no. And I was at this huge beauty expo in New York City called CEW, where there's 6,000 women walking the Javits Center. You get a 3-foot table, and you're there with all the biggest beauty companies in the world, and everyone's demonstrating their product launches. And the reason you do this is you're hoping that the 6,000 people walking, that either there's retailers there that'll bring you into their stores, or there's press there that might cover your product, or that you get votes and you win one of the coveted CEW awards. So I'm there at a 3-foot table at Cosmetics. No one has ever heard of me. And I'm around all the biggest brands in the world. Long story short, I see QVC has this giant booth there. And I was like, oh. Now, Alan Burke had said, the head of QVC had said, Beauty had said, no, you're not the right fit for us or our customers, just a few months before. But I was there and I'm like, I've never met anyone in person at QVC. And so you're not allowed to leave your 3-foot table. And I could not afford to get kicked out. But I was like, I've got to do, like, I kept like praying about it. And I felt in my gut, like, I've got to do this. And I kept leaving my table. And every time I go over toward their booth, their buyers were mobbed, like just crowded with people. So I go back. I eventually go over and I get straight to a buyer, and I introduce myself to her and I said, I'm Jamie Kern, Lima. I started a company called It Cosmetics. She's like, oh yeah, I have your samples. And I was like, oh, they're really good. And I remember, this is so gross, but this is confessions of an entrepreneur, of a founder. I remember talking to her, trying to like pour everything I have into this. And I remember sweat dripping down my legs because I was so nervous. And anyways, at the very end, she gives me her card and she says, let's have a meeting at QVC. And I know. And I was like, and then I was like, wait, does she mean it? Like, if you've ever had anyone go, DM me. And then like, I'm on my Instagram looking and there's no DM. I didn't know if she meant it, but she did. And we flew out to Pennsylvania. We had a meeting and we got our very first big yes. But, huge but, what it meant was I got one shot.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone imagine this, QVC's live to 100 million homes. I got one shot in this 10-minute window to go on live and either hit their sales goal or not come back. So I learned that I have to sell over 6,000 units of our product in a 10-minute window to hit their sales goal. Because remember, on QVC, every minute of airtime, you're competing against the numbers Apple iPhone could do, or any other big product. So you have to deliver these high numbers. So then I learned,
and
yes, go ahead.
But wait, kids, there's more.
But wait, there's more.
Oh man!
I then learned that it is a consignment offer. Okay, and what that meant was, we somehow had to pay for over 6,000 units of product. And if it doesn't sell, I have to take it all back and we're not paid. So you should never say yes
for
to
everybody
that.
listening.
You should never say yes to that.
That is, if you were a betting woman and you're in Vegas or something, that the odds on that are so bad.
Yes.
To say, but you were in such deep faith, you wanted it, you had the vision of being there on QVC, you have a 10-minute shot, you have 6,000 units of product that you have to go and pay for, invest in, put that on a credit card, and let's hope we can pay that off. And now you have 6,000 units of a product that you don't know if you can sell in 10 minutes.
Well, and here's what's wild. We couldn't even afford to put on a credit card. So we were like, how are we going to do this? We went to 22 banks trying to get a loan, an SBA loan. They all said no. And they should have, because we had no accounts receivable. We had the 23rd bank, California Bank and Trust, gave us an SBA loan that covered the amount of this one big purchase order and then a little bit more. And we decided to go all in because I was like, I don't know how we're going to make it if we don't.
Oh, I have chills.
And we used that little extra money. We hired third-party consultants, and they're amazing. They all said the same thing. They said, okay, if you want a shot at actually hitting these sales numbers and making it on QVC, here's what you need to do. In your 10 minutes, you need to put this type of model demonstrating your product. And they would tell me all the things to do, which was all like literally girls that looked like they were 12, all with the same skin tone and no skin challenges. And so I said to them, okay, here's the thing. Here's my authentic vision for the brand. What if I put a model in her 70s or 80s, and then I put someone who's dealing with under eye circles and someone who's struggling with acne and hyperpigmentation? And what if I take my own makeup off on national TV? I show my bright red rosacea and I prove the product works. And they were mortified. And so I'll never forget this. A week before my one big shot on QVC, we fly to Pennsylvania. I go and I sit in this rental car all alone in the QVC parking lot, like watching the front doors of the building, going, the next time I go in that building, I'm going to go on air. I'm either going to leave bankrupt or I'm going to leave with my entire life changed. And there is a moment in the car where I remember just like praying, crying. I remember I'd once seen an Oprah show like 20 years earlier where she talks about how she wanted the color purple so bad, the movie, and she wasn't getting it. And so she like ran around a track and started singing I Surrender All and asked God to take it from her because it felt too heavy, her obsession with wanting it. I was so stressed in the car. I literally was like, I'm going to try that too. I started singing I Surrender All. I was like, God, this feels so heavy for me. And I was like trying to ask him to take it because here's the true confession. I was so tempted in that moment to try it their way because I was like, what if I do it and it works and I make money and I don't go bankrupt? Then I can try it my way. Like I had all those thoughts. And it was this moment in the car that these words, like they hit me that yes, you cannot fake authenticity. Customers are smart. And while authenticity alone does not automatically guarantee success, inauthenticity guarantees failure. Like every time,
Yes.
over time, right?
But you raised such a good point because I think especially when there are lots of opinions and you're grappling and you're trying to figure it out, it's like, when do you trust your gut or when do you trust the advice? And especially if you
Yes.
enlist someone to be an advisor, and at what point do you have to sit there, get quiet with yourself and be able to confidently look at them and say, that may be what works, but that's not what's going to work for me.
Yes. Yes, that is it. That is it right there. Because I believe your intuition is more powerful than anyone else's advice, even your greatest mentor, right? And so that moment, so I'm sitting there in the rental car crying, trying all the
Singing.
things, singing,
Crying, singing.
being tempted to try it their way. And it was like, I remember it coming to me because I was imagining who is that one person on the other end. I don't know why, but I kept imagining like a single mom in Nebraska who was like folding laundry, way too busy to remember that she's so beautiful and that she matters. I would rather her look up and see me showing women that look like her and calling them beautiful and meaning it. Even if she buys nothing, I knew in that moment I'd rather stand for something than sell a whole ton of product and stand for nothing. I remember walking into the studio and there's all these cameras and it's you and the host. And then there's this giant clock on the ground and it was set at 10 minutes. And I was like, okay, then Megan, then literally right before I go out, I learn after all this, I learn you're not even guaranteed your 10 minutes. Yep. Because they know by the second if you're hitting numbers. They know how many people are ordering on their phones, how many are ordering online, how many are calling in. So you might go live and you're a minute or two in, you think like, oh, I've got 8 minutes left. If you're not hitting numbers, your clock jumps from 8 down to 1.
Oh my gosh.
And you know you're done.
Oh my gosh.
So I learned that. And I remember the moment that the big red on-air light came on. So we were live. I had been practicing this demonstration on my wrist. Okay, the big part in the back of our wrist that bends and gets all these creases. And I would put our product, our concealer, and then the top 2 best-selling ones from department stores. And I would bend my hand back and forth, and theirs would start creasing and cracking, and ours wouldn't, which is a big deal. I had perfected this in my bathroom mirror like a million times. So I'm live trying to do this demonstration in the first minute of the show. My hand is shaking so much because I'm so nervous. The host I couldn't even finish the demonstration. The host grabs my hand, puts it under the podium, and she's like, thank you, sugar. And she took over. And I remember the moment my bright red bare face before shot comes up on the screen to 100 million homes. And then I remember walking over to the models, like every age, shape, size, skin tone, skin challenge, like calling them beautiful, meaning it. And I remember we were a few minutes in. I didn't know how we were doing, but I knew I wasn't cut yet. So I was like, okay, this is good. And then we got down, it was like the 8 or 9 minute mark. And I remember the host saying, the deep shade's almost gone. The tan shade's almost sold out. And literally at the 10-minute mark, this giant sold out sign comes up across the screen, all 6,000+ units. I start crying on national television, and they cut from me and went to like Dyson vacuum or something. Paulo comes running through the double doors, and I'm just like thinking, I remember looking at him and I'm like, real women have spoken. And I'm like sobbing. I thought he's going to come over and give me the biggest hug ever. And he just looks at me and he puts his fists up in the air and he's like, we're not going bankrupt. And I'm like, ah!
Oh my gosh. What did you guys do that night to celebrate?
I was in such a daze. I don't even know if I was able yet to be in my body because it was years and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of no's. I cried all my makeup off. I was just like, I felt like I was out of my body. And I remember that one airing turned into 5 that year and then 101 the next year. And then we did 250 live shows a year after year after year. And we built the biggest beauty brand in QVC's history.
And sold for $1.2 billion cash. I mean, like just one legendary acquisition.
Yes. And you just reminded me too of after we launched on QVC, after we made it, after we started gaining traction, Alan Burke, remember the head guy that said, you're not the right fit for QVC or our customers?
Please stop sending us products.
Yes. Okay, so after we launched, he ends up retiring from QVC. He'd been there several decades. He retired from QVC, and we hire him in a paid position on our advisory board. So the guy that rejected me is now working for me, right? And the days I was crying myself to sleep when he said, you are not the right fit for QVC or our customers, no one can tell you you are not the right fit. And I just believe in divine timing. And the other thing I wanted to share quickly is, after when L'Oreal bought our company, right, they paid $1.2 billion cash. And because they're a public company, they had to report it and disclose the purchase price. The day the deal went through, because it was on the homepage of the Wall Street Journal, because it was everywhere, it was the first day I heard from that one investor, that potential investor who said, women won't buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. It had been 6 years. And that was the first time I heard from him. And he said, congratulations on the L'Oreal deal. I was wrong. And
for me, I'm like, just vindication.
Right? Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Meghan, had he believed in me 6 years earlier, I was so desperate. I had no money. I didn't know how we were going to make it.
Oh, you would have given so much equity away.
I would have given him probably the whole company for almost nothing, just hoping, can I stay alive? Because he didn't believe in me, we're still the largest shareholder when we sold our company. And by the way, when he said, congratulations on the L'Oreal deal, I was wrong. I don't know if you remember in the movie Pretty Woman, where she goes,
big mistake.
Right? That's what I wanted to say to him.
Huge.
Right? Yes, I was like, I want to say big mistake. Huge.
Right.
But I didn't. I kept it really classy. I wouldn't have wanted to be him. And I was like, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. From all of those no's, from everything that you went through, from just genuinely, deeply being in perseverance to the point that we started with talking about this idea of planting a seed.
Yes.
And I know in this conversation how many seeds you've planted for people, with how much you've been generous to share about what that feels like in the journey and on the journey that is taking you to this place where now, not just from what you can do as an entrepreneur, but what you've been able to do for women and for people to know their worth, to write these best-selling books that have changed people's lives. And that person that was there as a waitress at Denny's or as a news anchor on local news, that's that same person in there who wants to feel seen. And as a result of that, you've been able to create the most illustrious career where not just as a businesswoman, but as a person, you let so many people feel seen. And it just is the most beautiful gift that I think you've been able to give, and to be so candid in your journey that makes the gift even more profound. So thank you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
Next week, I'm talking to a founder who makes instant drinks that are not only healthy, Oh, they're cool.
People really want this, and this is a completely unrealistic ritual. So Rod challenged me. If you can make the drinks we're serving in this bar that people are loving into a powder format, an instant drink, which is the least sexy product, most antiquated product of all time, let's put this out there in the world. Let's build something.
Can you guess who it is? See you then.
Confessions of a Female Founder is a production of Lemonada Media, created and hosted by Meghan. Our producers are Catherine Barnes and Oja Lopez. Kristen Lepore is our senior supervising producer. Executive producers are Stephanie Whittles-Wax, Jessica Cordova-Kramer, and Meghan. Mix and sound design are by Johnny Vince Evans. Rachel Neal is our VP of New Content and Production, and Steve Nelson is our SVP of Weekly Content and Production. You can help others find our show by leaving us a rating and writing a review. There's more Confessions of a Female Founder with Lemonada Premium. Subscribers get exclusive access to bonus content when you subscribe in Apple Podcasts. You can also listen ad-free on Amazon Music with your Prime membership. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next week.
Remember, this episode's not just for you and me. Please share this with every single person that you know because it can impact and change their life too. And if you love today's episode, please click the subscribe or follow button on the show on the app that you're listening to or watching it on. And if it added value to your life, if you could please give it a rating or 5-star review, I'd be so grateful. And again, please share it with everyone you believe in. Post it and share it with other people online or in your community who just might need these words and tools and lessons in this episode today. You never know whose life you're meant to change today by sharing this episode. And thank you so much for joining me today. And before you go, I wanted to share some words with you that couldn't be more true. You, right now, exactly as you are enough and fully worthy. You're worthy of your greatest hopes, your wildest dreams, and all the unconditional love in the world. And it is an honor to welcome you to each and every episode of the Jamie Kern Lima Show. Here, I hope you'll come as you are, heal where you need, blossom what you choose, journey toward your calling, and stay as long as you'd like, because you belong here. You are worthy, you are loved, you are love, and I love you. And I cannot wait to join you on the next episode of the Jamie Kern Lima Show. In life, you don't soar to the level of your hopes and dreams. You stay stuck at the level of your self-worth. When you build your self-worth, you change your entire life. And that's exactly why I wrote my new book, Worthy: How to Believe You Are Enough and Transform Your Life for You. If you have some self-doubt to destroy and a destiny to fulfill, Worthy is for you. In Worthy, you'll learn proven tools and simple steps that bring life-changing results, like how to get unstuck from the things holding you back, build unshakable self-love, unlearn the lies that lead to self-doubt, and embrace the truths that wake up worthiness, overcome limiting beliefs and imposter syndrome, achieve your hopes and dreams by believing you are worthy of them, and so much more. Are you ready to unleash your greatness and step into the person you were born to be? Imagine a life with zero self-doubt and unshakable self-worth. Get your copy of Worthy, plus some amazing thank you bonus gifts for you at worthybook.com or the link in the show notes below. Imagine what you'd do if you fully believed in you. It's time to find out with Worthy. Who you spend time around is so important, as energy is contagious, and so is self-belief. And I'd love to hang out with you even more, especially if you could use an extra dose of inspiration, which is exactly why I've created my free weekly newsletter that's also a love letter to you, delivered straight to your inbox from me. If you haven't signed up to make sure that you get it each week, just go to jamiekernlima.com to make sure you're on the list, and you'll get your One-on-One with Jamie weekly newsletter and get ready to believe in you. If you're tired of hearing the bad news every single day and need some inspiration, some tips, tools, joy, and love hitting your inbox, I'm your girl. Subscribe at jamiekernlima.com or in the link in the show notes. And please note, I'm not a licensed therapist, and this podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional. If this episode impacted you and you want more, click here.